Hey everybody, hope you're going well. Today we have a very exciting tutorial series on building a Stripe marketplace from a subscription perspective. So this is commonly used for content creators where content creators are offering services or content for paid subscription fees. So for example, this is like YouTube membership, Patreon, or even OnlyFans, where subscribers will subscribe to content creators. So and then after they've successfully subscribed, they are able to access certain content on their profile. And I'll show you how it works quickly. So right now I'm logged in as John Doe, and John Smith is basically a content creator. And you can see he's offering one membership plan, and it's $10.99 and it's early access to YouTube videos. Currently, my supported creator is nothing, so therefore I cannot access John Smith's kind of content. So if I press subscribe and then I enter some information, let's call this john@doe.com, and then I put some arbitrary number, John Doe, press subscribe, number for this card. What's going to happen next is basically we're going to subscribe to this content creator. And without further ado, so if you go to supported creator, you can see here now John Smith is our supported creator, and now we can see his content. So of course we can ultimately also configure the cancellation subscription action, but I'll just quickly directly show you how you can do it via Firebase to show you how it works within the app. So if you go to Stripe, itself, I'm just going to reload this Stripe, and you can see this is the subscription we just created, and if we cancel it immediately in our backend, we instantaneously lose access to the supported creator here. So it's all gone now. So this was all configured without the use of a front end because it's all done by webhooks and cloud functions. So before we get started, remember to comment, like, and subscribe for more content on Flutterflow. And if you ever need any help with your app, remember to contact me with the links below. Okay, so we will be using the create subscription with Stripe billing with Connect. And you can see here in the documentation, there are multiple use cases that are offered. Firstly, create subscription from the end customer to the connected account, create subscription to build platform end customers, create subscription to build connected accounts. The one we'll be focusing on how Patreon works will be create subscription from the end customer to the connected account. And within this, it actually offers two use cases where we can create direct charges and destination charge. And you can read here in the documentation the differences. In this example, we'll be using destination charge because we will be using Express connected accounts. In addition, we'll be using the Express connected account because that's easiest to set up for our sellers. What's happening is that the platform would take the subscription fee when the customer renews the subscription, and then transfer this amount to the content creator, and then we'll take an application fee amount of hypothetically say 20%. The relationship is between the buyer and our platform, i.e. we are responsible for the Stripe fees that's implemented, which is subsequently offset by your application fee amount being charged to the content creator. So that's how it works. If your use cases differ, please feel free to read the documentation to set up the right subscription type for your platform. We actually have already configured some API calls already from my previous video on Stripe subscription. So check that video out if you have any questions. But in essence, what we have here is basically the create accounts endpoint, which is the connected account, linking that connected account to our platform, and lastly, creating the customer ID endpoint. So this is the database structure we're going with. So at a very basic level, we simply have the default option that Flutterflow provides, and we have the Stripe Connect account ID for our connected account, Stripe Connect charges enabled to ensure that they have complete onboarding, Stripe Custom ID, i.e. if they're basically a user who's subscribing to someone, we need to create a Stripe Custom ID, and a supported creator. So here's a list of users that the user is, the list of creators the user is supporting. And then on each user, if they want to become a content creator, we're going to store the price ID from Stripe, a description of what they're selling, a title and price, and lastly, we're going to have a content schema, which simply shows the content itself. So the creator reference, the text, an image, and the creator time. So the structure is very basic here in terms of what the app will contain, because the main focus of this tutorial series is basically how do you use Stripe to create your own marketplace subscription. Okay, so what we have here is a very basic onboarding flow where we have the user create an account and a login. So I'm just going to quickly configure the action of getting started, i.e. creating the account. So what we want to do here is basically just use the create account functionality where it's going to be auth provider is email, and then the email being used is the email address correct widget, password it will be password, and then confirm with password confirm. And here I'm not going to set anything special yet. So here we're going to create the user document, and then we would disable navigate automatically, because what we want to do is navigate the user to the onboarding flow. So I'm going to go onboarding flow, go navigate to onboarding, and then we'll disable allow back navigation. What we also need to do is basically create that custom ID from a Stripe perspective, where we're creating the Stripe custom ID and saving it to this user. We're doing that because the customer relationship is with the platform. Hence, we will be creating the custom ID on our platform instead of the connected account. So what I will do here is basically we will add an action to make an API call. The API call will be making the group Stripe create customer endpoint, and then the variable we are setting will be the email for documentation purposes. So I'm going to email address create, and then output call will be called API response create account. And then here I am going to add a conditional builder just to make sure it has succeeded. So if it has succeeded, let's go to the true flow, else we'll go to the false flow. So I'm going to add an action here of snackbar Stripe account creation failed, Stripe custom account creation failed, and I'm going to terminate here as well so it doesn't go any further. And then when it's true, I will update a document. So I'm going to update the authenticator's user document, and then I'm going to add the Stripe custom ID to be the response from this API call. So the Stripe custom ID will be obtained from this response. I'm going to click JSON body, predefined path, ID, and press save. So in summary, we're creating an account, we're making the API call, we're updating the authenticated user because we will have authenticated by here. And then lastly, we will navigate to the onboarding page. I'm just gonna put this here to make it neater, press save. So let's test it to see if it works, all right? But before I do that, maybe let's also configure the onboarding page. So in the onboarding page here, we have a condition builder where if the user presses it, they will upload a photo to a local state. And if the local state is set, we'll just show the local state image. Else it will just show this placeholder image, right? Telling them to upload. And then lastly, we just have a profile name, very basic, and a button to finish onboarding. So I'm going to press, when they press finish onboarding, I'm going to update the document, i.e. the updating the user's authenticated reference. And what I'm going to set is the photo URL. And here it's going to be from upload a photo. Actually, before we even make this update, we need to update the local state photo. So it's going to be upload/save media. And I'm going to, the upload type will be from Firebase, and the source will be the uploaded media local state we just uploaded from when the user clicks that conditional builder. We'll call this Firebase onboarding image. And then here, now we can access it. I believe this is going to be from the uploaded file URL number 2. And then we will also update the display name to be from the widget. It's the display name widget here. And then lastly, we will navigate to the search creator page, which is basically our home page. Okay, now that the app has loaded, let's go through the onboarding flow. So I'm going to just type in some basic data for the account. So we'll press get started. So what's going to happen is that the account will be created. And it's going to go to the onboarding flow. So here I'm going to just upload an image, very basic image, and I'm going to put this as name. Press finish onboarding. So now this is basically uploading the photo and then setting the photo into our Firebase collection. So if we go to Firebase, we can see here when I press refresh on the database, the user collection has been created. And here within, we have the Stripe custom ID, the photo URL, and the email and our display name. So that's pretty good in terms of what we want to configure. So here is basically the overall UI. So similar to my Stripe Connect video, we will need to set up the seller's profile. So the seller needs to sign up to Stripe Connect in order for us to pay them. So we will be configuring, creating that Stripe connected account and then linking that to our platform. Although I've covered this in my previous Stripe Connect video, I'll do it here again just so everybody can follow along. So here we, in the profile section, we have a Stripe Connect button. And what I want to configure this is basically it goes to the Stripe Connect page where we show the Stripe Connector ID if the user has one. There's a button called Create Connected Account where the user basically will go through the Stripe hosted onboarding flow. And then lastly, if they have in any way or form during the onboarding flow not completed the Stripe Connect, I am going to show this button until they have finished onboarding. I want the user to finish onboarding before they can allow to submit content, because ultimately we need them to finish onboarding on Stripe before we allow them to receive payments. Let's get started on that. So basically, let's configure this page first. So when I press Stripe Connect on profile page, I will navigate to the Stripe Connect page and we'll allow backend navigation. So on this page here, I have very simple Stripe Connect ID just for references. And then what I want to do here is if the authenticated user's Stripe Connect ID is set and not empty. And this button, we will make the Stripe Connect API call. So here, I'm going to make on tap, we will going to make the API call of Stripe of accounts. So this is the connected accounts. So the variables we need to pass in are basically business type, country, email type. So the business type, I'm going to call it individual because everybody on our platform will be individuals. The country, I'll be AU because I'm based in Australia. The email, I'm just going to grab that from the authenticated user email. And then lastly, the type, I'm going to press express type because we will want to make the onboarding really quick instead of having a standard. So standard allows the user to have full control over the Stripe account, while Express, the platform still has control over the Express account. So I'm just going to change this output name to be create connected account response. And then what I want to do here is, what happened is that when you make that API call here, what's happening is that it actually returns the ID of the Stripe Connect account. So here, so I want to update the document. So I'm going to update the authenticated users, user ref, and then I'm going to set the field of Stripe Connect account ID, and I'm going to get it from the response here. The response from JSON body predefined path ID. So here, basically, we're just saving it. And then I will also update the document and set charges enabled as false. That means they have not finished onboarding. Next, once that's done, I'm going to make another API call. So in my previous video, this API call basically links that newly created Stripe account to our platform. So the variables we need to configure are basically the type, return URL, refresh URL, and account. So the type is basically account onboarding because we want the Stripe account to go through the onboarding. And the refresh URL and return URL, this basically is a link back to your app. I'm just going to use something very basic that we can find online, where it'll be example.com/refresh/return, things like that, right? Nothing special about it, just a sample URL in the meantime before we deploy the app. And then account will basically be the this response here, the ID. So basically, this will be the create connected account response, JSON body, predefined path of ID. And then this will basically give you a URL to onboard. And then let's just say I'm going to launch the URL, and the variable will be basically the URL's response, JSON body, predefined path, URL, confirm. And this will basically launch the URL for the user to create the Stripe account. And this button, I want to show if the charges enabled is false. So i.e. Charges enable is set to false. So it'd be opposite statement. Similarly, for the complete onboarding button, I want the user to basically launch the API call to create the account link again because they have not successfully onboarded. So the API call here will be similar to the onboarding flow. I'm just going to copy this really quickly. It's going to be copy this action chain and then paste it here. So it'll be the create account link. It'll be very similar, and then URL copy. Or maybe I'll go URL continue onboarding. And here I'm just going to launch a URL here as well. So I'm going to delete this, bit of sort of like glitch here. I'm just going to call this if the URL continue onboarding succeeded. I will launch a URL. URL I want to launch is basically the response from this API call. Cool. That's done. So to recap, what's happening is that we're creating that Stripe account and then getting the user to onboard our Stripe through the express way. So how do we know that the user has completed onboarding? So what I want to do is basically use a webhook to update our database. So what a webhook does is basically it allows Stripe to pass data back to our platform from a server perspective. So I already configured the code for it, but it's very similar to a previous tutorial I've shown. What's happening here is I'm listening for the event type of account updated. And what it's doing is basically it obtains the account ID from what data has been provided from Stripe. We query the database of users for the same account ID and then sets it to the charges enabled field that Stripe has passed onwards. And I'm just updating our database field called Stripe Connect charges enabled based on what's passed from Stripe. So if Stripe passes as false, it'll be false. If Stripe passes true, it'll be true. So how do you configure that webhook, right? So what we'll do first is firstly deploy this cloud function without any secrets set up, because when we go back to Stripe and then you go to developer and then go to webhooks, when you press add event destination, it asks for the endpoint URL, which you need to provide after you've deployed the cloud function. So I'm just going to wait for that deployment first. And of course, remember to add the Stripe package from npm. So if you go to npm, and then you can simply search the latest Stripe package that we will require. So if you go to Stripe, this is the package. So I'm just going to type this. So you go Stripe, and then star, and I go 17.5.0. Now that's done, and press save, and then deploy. Okay, now that the cloud function has been deployed, you can actually find it on your Google console. And if you go to Cloud Run Functions, and then go to Stripe Connect Onboarding Complete, and then go to Trigger, this is our URL that we need to paste into Stripe. And then what you want to do, I'm just going to write a description. I say, listen for whether charges are enabled on Stripe. And then this is going to be events on connected account. And what we're listening for, account updated. So it'd be account.updated. Add event here. And I'm going to press add endpoint. And then what we also need to do to make sure Stripe can trigger it is if we go to permissions, I want to make sure all users are set as Cloud Functions Invoker. So that's basically it. And then now we will have access to the secrets, which I'll basically now copy back into Flutterflow and redeploy it again. So the cloud function on the actual cloud function now contains the actual secret that we have obtained from Stripe and our test secret key, which is placed here. Okay, now that we have completed the setup for the Stripe Connect from a API perspective and a webhook, let's create that Stripe Connect account for our creator. So here I'm going to go Stripe Connect. Let's press create connected account. So this is basically making that API call and launching the URL to onboard. And of course, all of this is possible once you have successfully onboarded your platform as a connected platform. So I'll just press use test number. And to continue onwards, I'm going to press use test phone number for this test, and we'll use test code and so on to successfully onboard. And now it's going to be tell us your business. I'm just going to enter some random information here just to get us onboarded for this test seller account. So this is the final step of the onboarding flow. I'm going to press agree and submit. And this is basically we'll navigate back to our success URL. So it's just a sample URL we provided very early on. Anyway, so we'll press done here, and then you can see here our Stripe account has been onboarded successfully. And here you can also see that Stripe charges enabled has been set to true. So I forgot to configure this visually correctly. So this complete onboarding button should only show if Stripe charges enabled is equal to false, which doesn't seem to be working correctly here for some reason. So maybe yes, this button is, yeah. So if this is this button. So if this button is set to, if the user has successfully onboarded, I won't show it anymore. So I'll only show it if the Stripe account does not exist. So if authenticated user connected Stripe account ID is not set, then we allow them to press create connected account. And if this first button will only show if the connected account does not have charges enabled and they have an account ID. So an account has been created for them. So here it is, authenticated user, Stripe connected account ID is set and not empty. Cool, now that's done. I'll just refresh the app. So I'm going to take a quick pause here because we've covered a lot of grounds. We covered setting up the authentication flow, in addition creating the Stripe customer ID and linking to the user. And we've also configured the connected account side, where a user can sign up to be a seller on our platform, where they're connected to our platform in order to receive funds when another user subscribes to them. So remember to comment, like, and subscribe to stay updated on this series in building your marketplace subscription app. See you next time. Thanks. Bye.